Good morning to all of you on this gloomy morning. Maybe the sun will come out here eventually. The flowers this week are lovely. I know Kathy Lassiter is sitting up front did them, and she has her family with her, so welcome to all of you. Welcome to everybody joining us by way of YouTube and Channel 12. We're glad you're joining in worship this morning. At 8 o'clock, it was fun. We had an 18-year-old today, Ford Wagner, so he got up early. I think he was happy to be at 8 o'clock service, I'm not sure. And it's Anna Bryn Williams' 21st birthday. Holy smokes. How did that happen? I remember when you were a baby. That's scary to me, really scary. Oh my. Well, it's good to see all of you this morning. It has been quite a week, hasn't it? Actually. Sometimes things far away from us are actually much too close to us. And I don't know about you, but the situation in Ukraine feels and looks very dangerous. And I realize how little influence I have about any of it. And so it compounds my feelings. And they are strong and have been. Maybe yours as well. But I know that you're praying, and I mean that. I know that you're praying about this, and I am too, earnestly. At times like this, though, I wonder, what is it that we pray for? Really? We who follow Jesus, these ways of peace, what do we pray for at a time like this so that our words don't just sound like some idle banter? Some toss-off because we're supposed to say it. What do we pray for about Putin, who is acting with such evil intent toward his neighbors who have done nothing? A man who says he's trying to rescue the church that doesn't need rescuing, by the way. They didn't ask for his help. Who've made this up. It is not true. What do you pray for? What do you pray for Putin and dictators who do this to all of us, shape our future with war? What do we do? What do we pray for? I don't know, but I do know this, that our prayers make a difference. They become real for us. They are important. Don't doubt it. Prayers do shape us first, and may indeed shape other things we don't know. But we can surely pray for the people of Ukraine, and we will pray for them this day. And I hope that we are praying for them every day, multiple of times. But maybe we pray in a real way. So do yourself a service that will not be any fun. Actually turn on the television and see who you're praying for. The women and children sitting in front of the building that just was hit by a rocket, and they were in the apartment that has now disappeared into rubble. See them. Pray for those people. See them. Pray for them. See the ordinary faces of the men. And with a few exceptions, I don't even think I'm one, from ages 18 to about 65, you're automatically now in defense of your country, whether you know which end of a gun shoots and which does not. Because you're fighting for your freedom and your life. See their faces. Pray for them. Be specific. Be meaningful. Because then our prayers are meaningful. Maybe it is sheer coincidence. I don't believe in those often, but they happen. Or maybe it was meant to be. But this morning we are invited in this story to the mountain with Jesus to do what? To pray. That's what the lesson is about. Jesus prays often, you know that. We usually catch him when he's leaving an event and going to the next event. So we think it's some kind of progression rather than knowing that he prays all the time. He prayed before that event, prays after that event, and prays himself into the next event. That's how Jesus lived. That's what the Gospels tell us. And he usually does it how? He goes off by himself. It says it over and over in all the synoptics. All the Gospels, including Mark, say he goes off by himself to pray. Today, what does he do? He takes the disciples with him. And we are going with him as well. We are invited to go up on the mountain to pray. And so what is that about? Well, think about it. The disciples follow Jesus every day, right? Village to village, place to place. It'd be like if we walk daily, place to place in Knoxville, stopping, thinking, teaching, preaching, trying to tell stories that intersect with real life. That's what they're doing. And then they follow Jesus every day as he heals the sick and the sick at heart. So we walk the streets. We sit down up at Clinch Street, sit down on the corner with someone who's brokenhearted and homeless, and we sit and we hold their hands and look in their eyes. That's what they do with him, day in, day out. Addressing, thinking about, talking to people whose problem is society, by the way, and the societal rules that aren't working. Relationships, men and women, between men and women, husband and wives, parents and children, that's their world. You see, Jesus is not a superhero. He's not some kind of superhero. He is simply heroic in his determination to be face to face, heart to heart, and soul to soul with the people with whom he encounters. He does not skip the encounters. He never skips the encounters. That's the context of their life. Today, he takes them away to pray. It's intentional. He has something in mind. And again, we are joined to come with them. And what does that mean for them? I know you see the news. I don't know if you saw this bit of news a few weeks ago to take us from Jesus Mountain maybe to one of our own. It was a normal day in Chicago at Al Raby High School. You may have seen this report. It's very powerful. The students at this inner city school are highly performing, make great grades, amazing, high scores in the city, time and again, and they're companioned with about 4 other inner city schools near them. The economics are terrible. Their lives are hard, but they are great young people trying to move forward. In the report, they interviewed some of these young people. What do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. What would you do? I will do this. I think I can help my community. And each young person they asked, so how are you going to go to college? And they said, I cannot go. I'll never afford it. So it's another day of that day for these students going to Al Raby High School. Well, they get to homeroom. Remember homeroom? How many of you still remember homeroom? I do. You were kind of buzzing along, trying not to pay attention, stay out of the teacher's way, not have your homeroom teacher report to you of something you've done. They're doing what we all did. And then over the intercom says, hey, we're having a special session in the auditorium. Everybody come. Everybody groaned. You know why? Oh, no. Another talk about something we've done. Another act of violence. And so we're being warned and given the lessons about what to do about violence in the school. They couldn't imagine, but they file in, sit down, and then this white guy gets up, who's a little younger than I. His name is Pete Cadens. And he starts talking about all the things about education, how important it is, how far it will take you, work hard, do your grades, be a good student, be a good neighbor, be a good child, it's the blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you. And then he says this. And by the way, I know that most of you want to go to college and you cannot afford it. Well, I'm here to tell you that every one of you are now going to college for the next years and years and years in this school. Tuition free, books free, room and board free, and then he stops. And then the place explodes in pandemonium. At first they think he's joking, and then they realize he is not kidding at all. And they just start leaping and screaming and yelling and hugging. And then the pan into the kids, they are pouring tears. Could not imagine. And then when it gets quiet for a moment, he says, by the way, I know that I was privileged growing up in Chicago. I had stability and education, I had a home, I had a family, I had a church. He says, we know you have those things, but the one thing you need help with is money. Money is systemic. And we're going to do that. In fact, we're going to do that so any one of your parents in your household can go to college with you, tuition, books, living free. Another explosion. Go look it up. His name is Pete Cadens. He started Hope Chicago. He made a lot of $1 million doing business. And then one day he decided being a CEO wasn't cutting it. He just couldn't float it. He took a little time off. Do you know what he did every day? He walked his children to school. He said, I can't tell you what it started meaning to me. And then he took a little more time off during the holiday season of Hanukkah and Christmas and did stuff with his kids and his wife. And then they did some outreach things that he didn't know much about and saw these Christian groups, Jewish groups, doing these things for people. And then he was proverbially hooked. So he started Hope Chicago, got a bunch of other guys his age with their money to do something. And they have now pledged $1 billion for these 5 inner city schools for the next generations to come, that they will be educated. Tell me, you think that's going to make a difference? See, in a small and very important way, I'm not saying Pete Cadens or anybody else is a saint, or I don't know exactly about his faith. I'm pointing something out to you. He simply hit the pause button. He took a pause. Hard for us to do. He realized the direction wasn't right. So he paused. And in the pause, incredible things began to happen. It is this simple. Prayer for us is the pause button. It is our pause button. It is there for us to pause. We are so active. We think, we react. We think, we plan, and then we do. No, Christians think, hopefully then we stop and pray. And you do, and I do. But deeply. Let that prayer be something that takes us, carries us, shapes us. You see, I think Jesus was doing with the disciples what he would do with me, do with you. He'd say, I know you do prayers at your mealtime. We do, always have, at restaurants. I know it embarrassed my sons, but we'd stop. We didn't do it fussy. I know we pray prayers in the morning, prayers in the evening. I do my prayers, teach my grandchild to get on her knees. We do all of those things, mostly in a rote matter. He's saying, take a pause from that, guys. Take a deeper look at what prayer can do for you and mean for you. He wants simply their prayers to be more real and more meaningful, more fulfilling to the life that they want and the faith that they hope to live, the faith that they have. So prayer does that. You know, prayer is something so small. Don't make this big. Don't make this hard. Put it in your pocket and take it with you. Put it in your purse and take it with you. That's what it is. It is simply our way to know that we need those times to actually have a mountaintop experience in the middle of all the ordinary busy stuff going on. To pull back just a bit. To really test something else out. You know what prayer is we listen not expecting to get something. I'm going to say that again. The best of our prayer is when we pray something. We listen and don't expect anything. Hard to do. Hard to do. And by the way, it is not absent that you are here because worship is prayer. That's all we're doing now. We're not affecting change. We're shaping our lives. We come and pray. We sing our prayers. I hope that the words that we say in a sermon are some kind of litany of prayer. We offer ourselves to God in worship and then see what happens. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince, you know The Little Prince? You know he was an amazing pilot. You may know that. One of the early pilots, a pioneer. And he was flying in a storm. This was before he was a writer, actually. He was flying in a storm, a horrific storm, and realized he probably would not make it. He couldn't figure out where he was in the center of the storm and surely couldn't find the airfield. So he radioed down to the airfield, it's a true story, radioed to the airfield and said, clueless. And they said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start blinking the airfield lights on and off. We're going to blink them 3 or 4 times, turn them off. Blink them 3 or 4 times, turn them off. Do not do anything until you see the light. That's what they told him to do. He said the minutes turned to hours. And he realized his life was hanging by a thread, literally. And then there they were. And so he descended and in a horrific crosswind landed, and it actually saved his life. Do you see, prayer is that for us. It is finding the light. It is not a joke. It is finding the light wherever you are. And that can even be in a joyous occasion. Some of my best prayers have been when a child's born or celebrating a birthday, celebrating anniversaries. It doesn't have to be dour and bad. It's just that we pause. It is a Christian tool to pause and see. We have an unusual thing today in that the reading from 2 Corinthians is actually a commentary about the gospel. That was a whole lot of thinking, but absorb it for just a second. So later go back and look at it. Paul is referring to the transfiguration when he writes what he writes. And he says, you know what happened to the disciples up there? They had this veil that was over their heads. Somebody in Bible study said that this week. Or maybe as they had a veil over their minds and couldn't think. And Paul says what happened on the mountain in prayer is it was removed. And they saw Jesus face to face. They saw everything they needed to know from that point on. We know that this story is a hinge to launch these young men with Jesus into the next part of their journey, which is going to get harder. But they are launched and given something to go forward with. But hear this, if you didn't hear any of that. St. Paul says at that point, it is akin to being set free. Jesus is a freedom event. Jesus will bring us freedom. And in that freedom, who knows what might happen? Amen.